Recording is in progress. Good evening, y'all. It is week 17, OOPJS React 2023-124. I am your host, Jordan. Today, we're going to learn React. But more specifically, I'm going to teach you about props, and I'm going to teach you about event listeners. Event listeners, very small, really the only missing piece you need for today's assignment. But I also wanted to talk about props because I got a lot of questions about props, except y'all didn't know what props were, but you asked questions and the answer was props. So we're going to go into that a little bit. I think it's one of the more complicated things in React. I think it's one of the, and I say complicated, it's not complicated, but it is really easy to lose track of state and passed on props. And props, by the way, it stands for properties, which you'll learn on Thursday. When people say props, they're talking about properties. And we'll kind of explain how it works. But generally, when you pass on a component, you can give it some properties that it takes with it that can refer to its parents. So much like in object-oriented programming, you'll set up a class and then you'll have a child class that pulls off of that. You have means to reference back to its parents. That's what I want you to think about a little bit when you say props, because you'll create a component and you'll give it some stuff, and then it goes and does its thing. And when it renders, it's got its parents' props, and it can reference its parents' props. It doesn't belong to it. It belongs to its parents. That's the difference between state and props. Props generally isn't always referring to a state, but it could be referring to a state, just not belonging to the component. And I know there's a lot of ephemeral explanation, so I'm going to get a little bit more into it. Creating a React app. Don't forget, npx create React app. What do we want to call this one, Mr. Squivers? Squid app. So I'm going to do a lot of your challenge today for you, and that means you won't have much less to do, but I can give you some stretch goals at the end of this that I think will be really fun, or at least help you utilize some of this lecture that is not here in Palindromes. So I will open up our challenge for today. Follow along if you want. It's really pretty simple. Release 0 is create a text box. Whoop-de-doo. Release 1, capture what you did. Whoop-de-doo. Easy peasy. Solve the palindrome challenge. All of you here have done this at least one time, so again, not a big challenge there. We're just going to do it with a website, which some of y'all like websites. I read it in your instructor feedback or your daily check-in. Who said they liked them? I'm not going to call anyone out. But we all like websites. That's why we're here. There's a web development class. I should have done this beforehand. Sorry, it takes a little bit to get going. So I've been doing npm React start. Turns out you can actually just npm start. But let's get into this Squid app and open it up. I wish I could. Why can't I hide that? Okay, so let's talk about React again. Just, repetition is kind of important. We did it in Django. We're going to do it in React. Public. Don't worry about that today. Don't worry about it maybe for a long time. That's where some things are just sitting around for to make this homepage that is created right off the bat. Source. That's where all the goodies are kept. We're going to be working out of source for most everything we do here. Did they give me a git ignore? Oh, y'all, have y'all seen this? Modern npx gives you a nice little git ignore to not blow up all your stuff. That's kind of handy. I didn't notice that yesterday. So yeah, cool. It does a lot of the work for you. That explains why I don't ever commit massive node modules. And I never even think about it. So public, here we go. It's doing this logo, doing all that. That's fine. Close it. Don't look at it again. App.js, not the entry point. Index.js is, but we don't worry about that because the first thing index.js does is pulls in app.js right here. So this is actually not the entry point, but where all the work is happening. Everything you do here, see that this is our entry point. We can do whatever we want. Now, talking about palindromes, how would we solve this? This is so hard. Create a UI that has a text input on an on-change event listener attached to it. How the heck would y'all know about this? We haven't taught you about this yet. It expects you to go look that up. You could. I think there's a little bit of kind of figuring some stuff out that I would like to just kind of cover so we don't all get lost on it. If you want to know what an input tag is, don't copy paste this. It won't work here. But don't forget your input tags, often contained within a form. The forms of HTML do work here. You could use forms just like in HTML, and you'd have no problem. It'll act a little funky, but it does work. You don't have to do that though. Remember, this is not really HTML. It looks like HTML, it talks like HTML, but it's JavaScript. Promise. It's JSX. Sorry. Again, JSX, Jinja, very similar. They're both templating languages. One is for injecting Python, one is for injecting JavaScript, both into your HTML templates. Let's clear all that junk out. So, step one, create a text input. Well, that's pretty easy. And it's super easy because I've already done it over here. So I don't have to remember anything. Oh, goodness gracious. Give me just a second, y'all. I need to pull up my example so I don't lead y'all astray. I don't want to fumble too much. But this ain't super hard. All right. So, input box, pretty easy to do. I'm going to be working right out of the app.js just for starters. Then I'm going to peel it out. But first things first, we have been teaching you in class. This is functional. We could work in this. I'm going to convert it to class just to remind you because Code Platoon wants you to bounce between the two. Let's do it together. So class, oopsies. It's going to be app. You do not invoke it. Extends React component. This is all from yesterday. You could just pull that up as an example. The other thing we have to do is actually invoke render here. Open that up, close that up, and we Gouda. Let's indent one for that. Is that good? Is that right? Is that all I need to do? No, I need to import React from React. Okay, so input box, pretty darn simple. We are just within this div going to open up an input box. Type, it's going to be text. Looks similar. Value though, we're going to want to set state inside of this. This is how we're going to do this. I want an input box that is actively writing to state as we do it. I'm not going to use a form. I could use a form where on submit I would set it to state, but we can do things reactively. So this is kind of the React way to do this. Again, there's not a right or wrong way to go about this. You could use a form, but I'm just displaying how powerful React can be and how quick it is to work. I'm going to set some state here. This is our state. I'm going to create a state called text. Its default is hello. It doesn't need to be hello. It could be blank. I like to put something on there so that I can see it when it displays. Oh, what did I not close up? Oh, I'm not finished yet. What I want this input value to be this dot state dot value. Is that right? Where did I get that? I don't think that's supposed to be there. I think that's a mistake on my part. But what I'm going to do with this is on change, and this is what the on change event handler is going to be doing. We're going to do something. In those somethings we're going to capture up here. So I'm going to create a function. Let's let's handle events. This is on change. Generally, when there's a change on a page, when there's an entry made, we call those events in JavaScript and React especially. So I'm going to call it handle event. Haven't created that yet, but I will. We're going to do it up here. So I don't have to do point out something that I realized earlier. This is going to take in the event. Bad arrow. Open her up. And what I want to do is, again, we're going to be editing state. And as you remember from your assignments yesterday, we don't mutate state directly. You use set state, where Jordan's going to yell at you. And you're going to get messed up when you're working. Text. We are going to set this, and this is probably one of the harder things to figure out on your own. Maybe some of you would have got there, maybe some of you wouldn't. This event is going to be captured in this input. It's going to be captured as event dot target dot value. And I think that's why I had a value here. So follow as I say, even if my explanation is not the best. So the input, the value of this is going to be set as we're setting state. On a change, we're going to be, sorry, I'll back up. On change, this is being, this value here is going to be equal to, give me a second. Oh, I think I'm doing this wrong. Now I just copy pasted something. Let's follow this. I'm going to change something afterwards so I can test it, but I don't want to get y'all lost while I'm playing. So let's see what this does, if this works the way we expect it to. What I think is going to do is, on a change to this input tag, it will be invoking this function. I want to see that on the page somewhere. So just within a div, let's template out this .state.text. I'm gonna put some ellipsis on there to make it easier to see. You'll see when we get there. Just trust me. All right, what do we got? Hello. I want it more over here, but that's okay. How can I get it to sit in the center that way? Oh, I know what I did. That's all right. Cool. Remember, here's our input box. Here is state, basically. Remember, state is hello. I am displaying within this div this.state.text with some ellipses. There's hello. If done correctly, as I start typing into this input box, the very first time, it should rewrite hello and hopefully re-render this. Let's find out. I'm going to put the letter P. Look at that. T. This is happening reactively. So that's kind of cool, right? I don't need to submit anything. I don't need to reload the page, which is very important. A big difference. This is spitting out a virtual DOM and rendering right in front of us reactively. So that's kind of cool. Now to test something. Is this going to break it? This is going to tell me if I know what I'm talking about. Okay, that's not even necessary, as I thought. All right, truly that value wasn't important. I think that was me pasting too much. There, that's that. So let's look and see if we did what we're supposed to do. Create a UI that has a text input with an on-change event listener handling, or event listener attached to it. Done. Capture what you typed. Once a user types something in your text box, capture what they typed, referencing the dot value of the text input field. You can do it with an event object automatically passed, or via, or into your event handler, or via refs. I'm not really going to mess with refs, but you can dig into that. Let's leave that alone for now. Try it this way. If you like the ref method, go that way. I've never done that. But all right, I think we're done with release 2 as well, because we're capturing it. It's right here, happening now, reactively. Really cool. Now, since this is happening reactively, we can do stuff with it real time. before I do that though, let's always a good time to go over what we did yesterday. This is our app.js. This is a front page. This is all the important stuff. I don't want to have a bunch of logic here. That doesn't make sense. I want it within the components folder, which I'm going to make now, components. And I'm going to call this input component. You don't have to call it component after each of them. I think that's probably a good convention, just to keep things straight. I think it is a pretty good convention. That's new to me. I've decided I do like it. So let's peel out what we don't need. State is attached to the input. That can go in here. Oh wait, hold up. We need to paste some more stuff. So opening this up. That is not what that's going to be. Input component. Let's bring in React. This is a new component. I have to open up a new class for this. Yeah, pretty much all this. Let's take our handler out. So that's also associated with this. Slap it in there. We also need to, at the end of this, render, open up everything, return, open up everything, and then let's paste in what we actually want to see, which is all this. Actually, it's all this. Doesn't like not being done. Sorry if I'm doing this a little confusingly. I want to show you that I'm actually just bringing things over one at a time. What are we missing? Close it up. Semicolon, not super necessary. So we've peeled out pretty much everything. The only thing left on this page is nothing really, but we have turned input component into a component. That input button, the handle event, everything is here. If we want to plug that into app.js, we just need to import it over, which I'm going to do now. Just like that. And remember, we are going to do it like input box component, close it. I think that should work. Did I mess up? Cannot. Components, input box component. Oh, I changed the names. I'm sorry. I didn't follow it exactly. Okay, button component is not going to find. Where did I get that? Oh, I bet I know where it's at. These are not things that you would run into. I just recycled poorly. We good. Now, input component is not defined. App.js, line 12. Yep, this one. All right, we're back to normal. Totally did that on purpose to show you guys how to chase down React issues. Just read it. It tells you exactly what page it's on, exactly what line it's on, and you'll kind of figure it out. I had some misnamed things. So I think we're back to normal. Yes, looks good. All we've got in here is this input component coming from here. What is next? Write your palindrome function. We're going back to week 1, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have to figure out how to check if something's a palindrome. Where would we like to do all this logic? Do you want to do it on app.js? Do you want to do it in the input component? Or do you want to get fancy and create a whole new component that checks for palindromes and uses props?
Yeah, do that.
All right. So let's create a new component. within this folder. I'm going to call it palindrome. New file, palindrome components. Gotcha. Yes. Wonderful. If you don't know where to start, always not a bad idea. Just copy what you've done in the past, right? Your components are all going to have a very similar kind of convention how you start them. So I'm just going to copy everything from input component, slap it in a palindrome component, and everywhere I see the word input, oh god, except I'm not. I'm going to change it to palindrome. Palindrome. It's good to me. This is not really in use anymore. This is not really in use anymore. That's not going to be used at all. So this is going to check to see if something is a palindrome. So just kind of working ahead, I'm going to use state because I can. I want something to be reactive. I want it to work on this page after it's rendered. I think is palindrome is a good way to do that. I know you probably think we should start with false. Just going to start with blank right now, and I'll show you why. I'll tell you why. You can't print false to the HTML because it's a Boolean. You need to either use the word false or the word true. I'm gonna, you know what? Heck it, let's keep it false just so we can see it on the page. That's a good work ethic. Now, a few things to talk about. First of all, let's write some code real quick. If y'all have not solved the palindrome challenge, sorry, spoiler alert. This is a decent way to do it. Let's talk about what we're doing here. And one thing I meant to talk about, do y'all know why I don't have to do this to create a function here right now?
No.
Is it because you're in a class?
It's because we're in a class. We're outside of a class. We have to do that. We're within a class. This is not, we just have to reference this as this dot check palindrome as long as we're within this class. So just like you would use self. Why don't you have to do this? I mean, we're in a class. That's why we don't have to, but should they have kept it consistent? Maybe. But that's why if you do go put in const and you run into issues, that's what's happening. You don't need to do that. Check palindrome. It's going to take something. I could pass a palindrome in here, or I could go look at something special, something like props. This logic might look kind of wild, but we're going to take in props, which again is passed in properties. Ideally, I'm going to take it from input. So whatever input's putting in, I'm probably going to take this text and pass that in. We're going to say this dot props dot text to reverse a word in JavaScript. I'm not doing a lot of error handling here. I'm just assuming we're just getting regular words, no spaces, no anything else, no capitals. We're not counting for that. Split it, turn it into a list or an array. Sorry, JavaScript. Reverse it, join it. Does it equal what it started? If it do, this is kind of nice to do there. I wanted to make sure the length was greater than 1. Don't have to do that. If it's a palindrome, this dot set state, we're going to set state and say it is a palindrome. If it's not, we're going to say is not a palindrome. And I would like to print that. So let's, within H tags, H1 tag, probably make it big and loud, proud, right there. It should just print this right to the page. So how do we pass props? Well, input component is where we're actually going to plug this into. We could plug it into app.js if we wanted. It'd make it maybe a little complicated from what I want to do. Input component is going to pass props to palindrome. So I kind of want input component to have palindrome component plugged into it. What that's going to look like to those of y'all who I haven't shown this to yet. First things first, we're going to need to bring in this palindrome component. Easier than, well, easier, harder, however you want to think about it. Unlike Python, it is a relative import to where your page is. Palindrome component happens to be one folder up, one folder down, and then within palindrome, component.js. So go up one, go over, go over. Remember in Python, it would be wherever Python is invoked, reference to there. Pick your poison. I kind of like JavaScript's way. It's very deliberate. You don't have any weird behavior depending on where you invoke Python from. Man, I'm doing this in the wrong spot. Of course, we need to be doing this at input component because that's where we're going to be pulling in this palindrome component. Palindrome component is defined but never used. We'll jump on that now. So just below this input box, I want to do palindrome component. And I'm going to pass it props. So this is what I would normally do, just passing the palindrome component. But if I want to give this palindrome component some information to take to its actual page here, I plug it in with a variable. I'm going to call the variable text. I think that's a good variable name. We could call it whatever we want. We could call it text as props if you really wanted. I think this is fine. It's your decision. What is it going to be equal to? Well, I'm just going to pass it on state. This dot state dot text. So, hey, palindrome component, I'm going to give you this variable to take with you. I'm going to call it text. What is it equal to? My state of text. It'll probably be hello right off the bat. So we should now have props. There are a few ways to kind of look for that. There's a few ways to kind of check that. If I wanted to do something, if I want to go looking for that stuff, I think this works. Let me run this. Did it write? I think it should write to this. Open up. Hurry up. Console. There's my console. Make this a little bit easier to understand. Oh goodness, how do you do this in JavaScript? It's like that, right, y'all? This is my props. If y'all haven't seen me write big dumb console.logs and print statements, this is how Jordan likes to do it, so Jordan doesn't get confused. This is my props. Now we know it's printing right there, easy peasy. What is that? Why is this printing hello? You printing that somewhere else? Interesting. Palindrome component line 24. Oh. Oh, okay, it's just got it. Rerun to the page. There we are. I don't know what this is. I need to look that up. But here we are. We're seeing props. Within this, within render is pretty much what render is doing is it is creating an HTML template out of JSX. But this is JavaScript. So within render and before the return, you can do all kinds of JavaScript that will run when it renders. Sometimes that's a good place to do things. Sometimes it's not. I would rather call functions on an event, but you can put JavaScript in here and have it just run when it's rendered. It'll only run once, but it will run each time it happens. So now we see it. We do see props. So this dot props dot text. We passed on some information from another component. So how do we want to do this? I want to show you all something very important here. This dot state dot is palindrome. I kind of want to see something else here. I should have thought how I wanted to teach this, I guess, concept. I think I have to show you like this. Okay. So what is happening here? What is all this? Let's slow down and back up. So let's look at our page. Don't need this no more. We have an input box. We have this hello here. Remember that hello is coming from input.js. That's the original starting text. We don't really need that anymore. Let's get rid of that. Palindrome component is rendering an H tag. It's saying, here are my props. This is what I was passed on. Dot text. Remember, I better put that back just for teaching this real quick. Original text. So these are my props. Because input component is saying, hey, plug it in palindrome component, take this text. And when you do, it's this dot state dot text right here. It's this. That's what it is. Snapshot of this. My palindrome component is saying, yeah, here's your props right here, original text, just like you said. This is my state. This state here within this component is palindrome, and it says false. We've got this check palindrome here that we're not using. It's not really going to be doing anything. So what happens when I start writing stuff? Let's see. Start writing. Wonderful. As you see, props are being updated as they go. That's great. But I need a way to trigger this to run. So how the heck would I do that? You might be thinking on event. It may not capture the event like you expect. I'm going to teach you. So this is done completely different in functional, but I'm showing you class today. I'll let not Hyder. Who was the other? Omar. That's the other instructor's name. I only know Sean. We're going to get into two different ways to kind of like prompt functions to run. And this is how we're going to do it in class. We're going to use something built in called component did update. Like that. Oh, that needs to be updated. What this is this is built into React. This is something that is looking for an update. It is looking at any props that were brought in to this file. If at any time the previous props, basically it's snapshotting the props, are not equal to the given props, I can fire off anything I want. And I'm going to fire off a check palindrome here. So if the props change from what they were, run this. What does this do? It pulls in props, which we know we have. It checks to see if it's a palindrome, and then it sets state. Once state is set, we should start updating this dot state dot is palindrome if everything works properly. Let's see. Start writing. All right, this is not a palindrome. How about race car? It is a palindrome. And also I did the single one. A single character cannot be a palindrome. Oh, did I? Okay, it's not resetting properly. That's okay though. Yeah. I know we're bouncing around quite a bit with the information. Are there any questions about how this is working? I can step through it from the beginning if anyone wants me to do that, or I can answer any questions y'all have right now.
So props is we can define what we want to pass in just back on that previous page when we were calling the component, and we can literally just say we want to pass in whatever we want to pass in right there.
Yeah, truly whatever you want to pass in. So app.js is taking in input component. I could set some props and say squid secret or something equals to squid, what's your secret? Doesn't he likes what do you got today? He's got a pig today. I should be able to pass that along, and in input component probably console.log props dot squid secret. Does that work? Oh, sorry, it's this dot props dot. My bad. And I imagine that probably is going to write to this page. I think. Yeah, there it is there. So I can really give it whatever I want, but this is how you do it. If you want to pass on props, if you want to pass on some properties, like, I don't want to get too into what properties can be, but this is a property. And I just put in a variable here called pig. That is going to get passed on to input component.js, which now has access to that prop. That's a silly thing to do. Normally, you want to pass in some useful information. So an input component, when it renders palindrome component, it passes on text, which is this. And what's cool about that is props are going to update whenever this state change is made. That's why we're doing set state. If I were, you know what, why not just prove a point here? If I were to do something like, this dot state equals dot text equals event dot target dot value, that would be basically adjusting state directly, which we have said we definitely don't like to do. I forgot my equal sign. So I think, see there, what's happening is, because I'm not using set state, I am directly affecting state. So, I mean, I probably can show you this happening here. State dot text. I think it's actually doing it. So it's not refreshing. It's not prompting a re-rendering of the DOM. I'm just changing this value of state. So somewhere down this page, I could reference this dot state, and it would change maybe exactly one time if I hit it on the page. But that's not what I want. I want to reactively do it. And to use React, I need to use set state, because set state is going to go into this state value, update this, and then prompt a re-render from everything that's using that state. It's a callback function, kind of. So that's important. That's why when y'all were doing your, unless y'all figured that out from the assignment yesterday, then I'm just talking to myself. But that's why it's very important to use set state to change state, because now that we put it back, it's reactive and it's happening real time. So I'm rendering the palindrome component. I'm passing it text. I'm using my state because I want it to prompt re-renders. So palindrome component is going to render the props and its own state. As props are changed, it's going to trigger a re-render. So this component is updating. It's being updated. That prompts whatever the heck I want to do. That's one of the things you can tap into. There's a lot of different, I'm not going to get too into it. We will get into this later. There's a lot of changes going on here. It isn't just, there was a change, I re-rendered. There's a lot more kind of bits of that. There's, do you want me to do something when you see the change? Do you want me to do something when I'm re-rendered? Do you want me to do something only after I've re-rendered if there is a change? Do you want me to do it after I re-render if there isn't a change? Like, there's a lot of kind of steps of the re-rendering process that you can leverage in different ways, and you'll kind of see why you would want to do those things. Because if I, if I'm expecting something to happen and something else to happen, but that doesn't happen yet, I kind of need to think about at what point of the process things need to happen. And that's when you'll get into more of the specifics of component did update, or in functional, I think it's called, oh goodness, I forget, update hook, something like that. I'll have to re-look that up. We'll see that very soon. But because the props are changing On a component update, it triggers this. I'm giving it previous props. This is built in to component did update. This is not something I made up. If the previous props text are not the same as the original text, then I'm going to trigger a check. The check can look at props because we have props, remember, and do all kinds of stuff to it. And then it can set state with those props. We set state, it triggers a re-render with the new, with the new state value and tells this to re-render. It will take you a few times, unless you guys are smarter than me and already there, to walk through step 1 to step, whatever step this is, 5 or something. But I think it's very important to do that. As you're working through your assignment, use props, use component did update. I'll push this up so you guys can see it. This is not really part of the release. If you were just to do it this way, I think the intention is to just plug this palindrome bit directly into your input component I would have here, and you wouldn't have to use props at all. But I wanted to show you what props are. So I would encourage you to use props. I would encourage you to see how passing things down can trigger different things to update, and really get thinking about solutions in as components, because they're reusable. Anywhere you're repeating code, you could probably be using a component somewhere else. Any questions at this point?
That function set state, is that pretty much similar to use state? Like the hook use state?
Use state, I think, is the same as this. I think use state is triggered on, oh wait, hold on. No. Yes, it is. You're right. There's different ways to write that.
So I like this one better. The other one seems there are more steps to get it to work.
I mean, there's more steps to get it to work, but it's different ways to write the same thing. One is like constructing it, and this one is kind of just making it a JavaScript object. You'll get used to both, I promise. What you're talking about though is like, we can skip ahead a little bit. And remember, I have to reteach myself some of this terminology, so it gives me a second to use state. Is it here? Yep. So if you were doing this functional, because we're not in a class, if we're doing functional, would be I would do it like that. If I wanted this to be a 1-for-1, it would look like that. Of course, we're going to need to comment that out. But because we'd be using functional, we wouldn't be within a class, so we would need to say constant. This is going to create is palindrome and set is palindrome. Use state, set the default state. Why this is cool is because I can go passing this down to different places. I don't have to reference other if I wanted to give this so let's think about this. I've got an event handler that changes this state right here. What if I wanted palindrome components, or what if I wanted some other component down the path to be able to update this state? I didn't want to call back and back and have this do it. I wanted palindrome component to actually change that. Or let's say we keep going. I can pass this as a prop down the line, and somebody can just have that. Like some other component can just have that, and they can say set is palindrome false, and it goes pop, 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 and fires its way back. That's why hooks are really nice for that. This is a callback function that's built in right here. I can use it on this page, or I can throw it down the line and let someone else use it. That's harder to accomplish in classes. I would have to, if I wanted to do that in classes, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, I'm not very well versed in React, but if I wanted to do something like it in classes, I'm pretty sure I would need to create my own function that changes state and then pass that function down. I couldn't pass this created state. So yes, this looks a little bit easier to read. This is kind of infinitely more useful. Good question. Good job reading ahead. Any other questions? That was a good question. All right.